and Bourbon. We're going to call it like Books and Coffee Hour or something a little catchier than that, maybe. Right, David?
Yep, exactly.
We've got some great guests lined up for the show today that David was actually just out there visiting. So I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that. But Books and Bourbon is a podcast where we talk a lot about books and selling on Amazon and very little about bourbon, especially today. But just getting started, a quick update for Amazon news portion of this. FBA fees will kick in the new fees on the 15th of this month, but we've actually already rolled in those fees to ScoutIQ for both Apple and Android. So that way the books you guys are scouting for now and picking up, the new fees will be taken into account since they're going to be listed and put into Amazon when the new fees have already kicked in. So that's already rolled out for Android and Apple. So you guys can be covered with those new fee updates. Anything else?
Hey, Matthew. Yeah, I was going to say, did you hear about that other news?
The other news, the industry news for Amazon that everyone's excited about?
Yeah, exactly. There are only 10 tickets left for the inaugural ScoutIQ Summit. And so, we're nearly sold out at this point. And so here's the thing. I think earlier this week, there were a handful of people that I know that have been just sort of hemming and hawing, like, oh, I'll get the tickets, but I'm just going to wait. Guys, the price is not going to be any lower than it is right now. And we went from like 14 tickets down to 10 within 2 days. I'm guessing probably here in the next couple of days. Well, it's coming up next week. So if you're going to get it today, find lodging, accommodation, and flights. And we hope to see you there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great group of people. So 14th and 15th in Las Vegas. We haven't put on a live event for a while, and this is the first ScoutIQ Summit, so ScoutIQ specific event. So we're super excited for it. And it's just, if you guys have not been to an event with other Amazon sellers, specifically other people that sell books online like you do, it's super refreshing to be in a room where people don't glaze over when you start talking about books and selling on Amazon and tips and tricks and all of that. Everyone does it. Everyone has new tips and things you can pick up from. And that networking is really where you get well over the value of the ticket price for these events, just in that time talking with other sellers. The speaking is great. The speakers will be great this year, but that networking time is tough to replace by pretty much anything else, especially just through Facebook and stuff like that. Just having that face-to-face connection is just a different experience there. So grab those tickets if you have not already.
And just to share how much of an incredible value this is. Over the last 18 months or so, I've been traveling around the country to network and meet other booksellers. Similar to Van City Books, I met up with Vishal and Manroop last weekend, actually. And just to kind of give you an idea how incredible this value is. For me, I was traveling around to different places to meet individual sellers. And so on average, I'm spending $500 to $1,000 on flight and lodging just to meet one seller. Now, for me, it's worth it at that price, but for how much is it? $249?
$249, I think is what it is right now. Yeah.
$249. You sort of get everyone all in one location. And so it's just like an incredible value. Instead of you having travel to 50 different places to meet these different people, you're able to all get together. And these events are incredible. So
no, that's an excellent point. Like you said, it's worth it for you even spending a whole lot more just to see one seller with the tips and tricks and stuff like that you can pick up in just that network. Having everyone combined in one room for $249 is pretty hard to beat.
Exactly. Should we bring them on?
Yeah, let's bring them on. Welcome to the show, guys.
All right. Hello. Hi, guys.
Are you guys
this is
the ScoutIQ Summit?
We definitely are.
Yeah. So we'll be flying out to Vegas on Thursday from Vancouver. We bought 2 tickets. We also got the escape room package. So we'll see everyone on Friday night, I believe, at the escape room as well. And then we're flying out on Sunday to Denver to meet David.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I'm Vishal, and this is Manroop.
Yeah, I'm Manroop. Even when David came, it was like, you just get so much knowledge. For us, it was just the little things that he gave, and like, it makes a huge difference. And Matthew, just going back to your point about like having all the Amazon sellers in one place, you can definitely take away a lot of information.
Yeah.
And literally all it takes is that one thing that can
Yeah.
probably change your business. So
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's kind of funny. Caleb and I have talked about that in the past. Normally you get a lot of good like tips and information, but normally like one random thing sticks out where you're like, this will completely change how I do this part of my business or open up a new revenue stream that wasn't there before type thing. So those little golden nuggets are my favorite to get from those events.
And it's perfect for people, at any stage in the business, because I think early on it's so important to make sure that, like for example, the pallet jack that you're purchasing is the one that you're going to need to unload. I don't know about you guys, but when I first started, I started unloading trailers with manual pallet jacks. If someone had told me day one, David, don't waste your money on a manual pallet jack, just go ahead and invest in electric, from day one, I would have saved $300, $400, $500 right there. Have you guys ever tried unloading a trailer with manual jack when you first started?
we for sure have, yeah.
So if you went to if ScoutIQ Summit existed back then, you would have known from day one to just go ahead and invest in an electric pallet jack. And so it's really helpful when you're just starting out, and maybe you're at the size where Vishal and Manroop are, and one little nugget that you take away might change your business by 1 or 2 degrees, but those 1 or 2 degrees may have tremendous implications, especially at scale. So,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out. Someone in the comments, Timothy, is in Santan Valley, Arizona. Santan is where I currently am right now too. So that's crazy. Someone's in the exact same city. Normally, I don't see people in Santan. It's Phoenix or other areas like that. So hit me up on social media, Timothy. It'd be great to meet up sometime since you're right down the street. Also, shout out to Christina. Let me see where the post is. She was having trouble for a few weeks getting approved on Amazon, asking for tips and emailing over and over again, but she finally got her approval letter this morning and she can start selling on Amazon. So she's excited to get started. So that's great to see people just getting started and getting experienced sellers like you want to learn from you guys as well. So it's awesome to see all the different places people are.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'll kind of use this as a segue to sort of start getting to know about Manroop and Vishal a little bit. But my understanding is you guys got started not too long ago yourselves.
Right. So the initial idea or the initial partnership kind of started in 2019. I guess Manroop can talk about how we met, and then we'll get into the business part of it.
So I guess what both of us are still pretty young, and we were still in university at the time when we met. We were just sitting in class, and it was one of our, what class was it?
It was a third-year business class.
It was third-year business class, and we're just going through our laptops, pretty bored, not paying attention to what the prof is saying. But Vishal was just scrolling through, because I think at that time, Vishal was looking at online arbitrage, just buying books and then reselling them right on Amazon. It wasn't even initially, we weren't even thinking about cherry picking or doing bulk or whatever. And then I asked him hey, what are you doing? And he was just oh, I used to do this back in grade 12. I'd go to thrift stores, purchase books, and then resell them online. But that's where the idea initially formed, is just oh, you can make money doing that. So then I think after at that stage, we started.
Yeah. So I initially found out about Amazon in 2016. This is when I was in grade 12. So we're both 24 right now. So grade 12, I was probably 18. So I started selling on Amazon, and the first challenge I had is I had 300 books. I had to get the books across the border because these are only books that I can sell in the .com marketplace. So then I ran into a bunch of challenges there, which we'll talk about after. So that was around the time when university started. I was okay, there's no way I can do this. I'm way in over my head right now. I don't want to really mess with the border and involve the government here. So I put that on the back burner. 3 years later, I met Manroop right when university started, but 3 years later, we revisited it, and we started with online arbitrage.
Yeah.
It didn't go too well. I feel there's a lot more stuff about online arbitrage on YouTube now, and a lot of that same logic applies to online arbitrage for textbooks as well. But we quickly pivoted to cherry picking. And we were doing both marketplaces, Amazon.ca and .com. And that was kind of how we started. That was the origin story.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me backtrack just a little bit. How did you guys first learn about selling books online? Like, who found out that you could find books and sell them online?
Oh, so that was me in like 2016 when I was in grade 12. It was just through random Google searches, online businesses making money online, and then I stumbled upon books. I don't know when ScoutIQ was originally invented, but I was not using ScoutIQ back then. And then I was working at a fast food burger joint, A&W. I don't know if America has that, but it's basically the frosted root beer mugs. And after my shift, I would go to libraries and thrift stores and basically search for books.
So it sounds like you were pretty young. You were working a 9-to-5 job at a fast food joint. How much money did you start with?
Probably less than $100 for at least the cherry picking model. Less than $100.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then,
so I think when we in third year, when we were like, okay, let's try this out properly, we would just because after class we would take the bus to our local charities and like Valley Village and stuff, and you just go and scan with your phone and scanner. And then we had like plastic bags that we'd carry the books back to Vishal's dorm room. And we'd come sort through like the good, acceptable, whatever, and then try to list them online. I think we did that like while we were still in university, like third year.
And this is when we were relatively, we didn't even know what listing softwares were. We were still listing through Seller Central. We were taking pictures of the book and including them on with our iPhone. We were taking pictures, and there's a picture of the book under all our listings as well. For some reason, I thought that would help, but I don't think it does.
Funny, so many people, I've heard that same story. They're taking pictures of each individual book. That's a pretty common thing to hear when people are getting started. It's always funny to see that, especially now thinking how much time that would take you guys to take a picture of each book and upload it.
And then we did that for a little bit. And then I guess it was like, oh, how can we get more books? Because I guess that's probably the biggest question that everyone's wondering. It's like, how do you get more supply, right? So then just doing that for a couple months, we started looking at like book sales and stuff. It's like, oh, there's a large quantity of books at the book sales. Let's go over there, right?
And this is all while you guys are still in university?
Yeah. Wow. So this is still third year. And like we would just travel even like 2-3 hours to go drive to a book sale, and we bought like a very like one of those carts that we could just place the books in, so it wouldn't waste time. Because there were obviously other sellers at these book sales as well, right?
That was kind of where we got introduced to like how much competition there was and like how there are other people doing this as well. And that kind of motivated us because we were standing in line for, I guess, the Vancouver Public Library book sale. And we saw the seller in front of us who has been doing this for longer than us. He opened his sales. I think it was at that point, it was like $100 at like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. And we were shocked. We're like, whoa, that's crazy.
David, I told you the story when you came too. It's like, we were just shocked. He's like, wow, how do you get like $200 of sales and like by 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning? And at that point, that was our goal. We're like, oh, okay, let's aim for this, right?
This was all in 2019. So we were still third year. We didn't actually start Baby Bulk until 2020. That was our fourth year university.
Yeah.
Okay. So real quick. So before you guys graduated, you guys were going to school, you guys were selling books. How were your grades? First off, but then secondly, like, were you guys making actual money from it, or was it enough to just like go out every now and then? Maybe you have a couple of beers. What kind? Like, give us a sense of scale.
It was so in terms of our grades. So our best year was basically second year. First year is typically an adjusting period for everyone going from high school to university. You're getting used to, I guess, the environment. Our best year was second year in terms of grades, and we were lucky enough to get internships. Second year,
but the only reason we, I guess, did well in second year is because we wanted internships at the big 4 accounting firms. So it was like, okay, let's try really hard this year. so we don't have to worry about it in third and fourth year sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then sorry,
yeah. So we did really well second year, and that basically landed our internships. And it's like, I guess, a known fact that once you get your internship, they basically always give you a full-time offer. Yeah. So our grades just went down. There wasn't much school after that, if I'm being honest.
All right. So you guys were continuing to sell books, kind of cherry picking after classes, and then your grades were slowly sliding. But it sounds like you got internships, and so post graduation, did you guys just, was it a no-brainer to just quit the internships and start the book business, or what did that process look like?
I think it was like a slow transition. Yeah. It wasn't really like just quit one thing and go to the other. Because like before we get to that stage, it's like while we were still in university, Vishal was like, he was still searching on how we could get more supply. Because even book sales, it's like, okay, they happen once a month, maybe twice a month, and there's other sellers there. But it was like, okay, what's next, so to speak? Like, how do we grow from here? So it was him. It's like, oh, who has a lot of books? Libraries obviously do, but they don't really just give it to one seller, right? They give it to like, oh, they just do a wholesale, buy it, whatever. Charities did, thrift stores did. So from there, we were still in school, and I think it was Taylai's.
Yeah, there's a small thrift store. David, we drove by it when we were going to Vancouver. There was a small thrift store that basically was our first bulk supplier.
But keep in mind, it wasn't really bulk. It was like 2 Gaylords at a time that we had to go pick up in a 5-ton truck, rent a 5-ton truck, pick it up, bring it back to Vishal's house, dump them in his garage.
Yeah.
And I think we left because like obviously we pulled out the .com and like the .ca, whatever we were selling on at the time. We pulled those books out, and then all the rejected books, we didn't know what to do with it. So we just left him in his garage for I think like 2 months, and Vishal's dad was like, guys, you need to get rid of this stuff.
Basically, we couldn't find a solution. Then it ended up becoming my dad's hassle, and he dealt with it.
Yeah.
You leave it for long enough, someone's going to take care of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That was what
Real fast, I want to give a shout out to Christina. She sent $19.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much for that, Christina. Pays for David's coffee addiction. So we appreciate that.
All right. So you guys were still in school when you started buying books by the pallet, dumping them onto Vishal's parents' garage and sorting through them. Yeah. And so at that point, were you guys like, all right, this is a surefire way that we're going to like be sustainable? Like, what were you thinking at that point? Like, were you like, oh, this is a real possible career path, or what was it still very much like a side hustle?
It crossed our mind because so at this point we didn't say, so once we graduated, our job was basically, we were going to go full-time, I think a couple months after we graduated. And what we did, instead of completely saying no to our jobs, we delayed the start date out like 6 months. And then we later extended that even more. So we would still have the job offer. We just told them, hey, we want to start at this date. But the next 6 months, when we started working, diving more into supply, getting a smaller warehouse and like scaling that up to an even bigger but still small warehouse, that was when it kind of triggered in our minds that like, okay, we're making a comfortable enough wage to the point where we don't have to start our jobs.
But we started pretty slow. I think we got a storage unit first. It was about 300 square feet. And at that point, actually before that, we were working with a charity where he was nice enough to let us come in and scan books in his warehouse. So we would literally just go to a charity. I'm not going to say the name, but he would let us scan the books and pick out all the good books that we wanted. And then we would weigh those books, and then we'd pay by the pound. So that was really nice for about, I think probably 6 months, right?
Yeah, it was a while.
We did that for a while. And it's like, we had no costs, no labor costs, because it was me and Vishal scanning. He had a dumper set up there as well. So it would just dump all the books. We just pick them up, keep scanning, and pull out all the good books. And honestly, Vishal jokes about it. He's like, if we just kept doing that, we would be making like $100K each a year. So it's like no expenses sort of thing. But yeah, that was really nice. And then after that, or before that, we had that 300 square foot storage unit, and we would get Gaylords and like some smaller form of a Gaylord's carts. But I guess it was just taking us so long to scan those, because we didn't have a dumper at the time. We would actually dive in into the Gaylords and scan the books. So it was like, and like those storage units had no AC, no nothing. It was in the middle of summer, so we were sweating. But that's where we started, and then we went into, I guess, the shared warehouse space.
So it was basically 300 square foot, 1,500 square foot, 4,000 square foot, to today, which is 14,000 square foot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
And that all happened over 2 years.
But at this time, it's not like just we were handed the supply. Like, obviously, we made calls, emails, and stuff. That's like like everyone talks about it, but it's just like you actually have to do it, right? Everyone's gonna tell you, be like, no, I don't want to sell to you. You guys are a bunch of kids. Like, you know, it's like a one-off thing. Like that's what they're thinking in their mind. But I like, just for both of us, it's like, I guess it was just like the commitment to like keep asking. And then at finally some point, the charities or thrift stores like, okay, sure, we can try it.
And then you just have to build trust from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of just got to keep them by your side.
Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you guys moved pretty quickly in the last 2 years, and I know you guys have employees. When did you guys decide that the timing was right to start hiring your first employees?
So when we moved from the storage unit to the warehouse that was 1,500 square foot, that was when we initially brought on our first 2 employees to at least help with scanning.
Yeah, because we were way too backlogged to do it ourselves.
And then having to deal with listing as well after you pull out the books. So there was just way too much going on. So we brought on our first 2 scanners at that warehouse.
Yeah.
Was that a hard decision for you guys, like taking away the profit like that? Or was that pretty easy since you guys saw the path to growth kind of by having extra hands helping?
I think,
easy. We saw the path to growth for sure. And there was no way that we had enough hours in the day. Even if we probably didn't want to sleep, there's no way we had enough hours in the day to get through all those Gaylords.
But yeah, because I guess both of us have like our commerce degree and we specialize in accounting. So it's like, we're pretty good with numbers in a sense to say like, you know, the profit and loss. But yeah, at that point, even financially, it did make sense to have people help us scan. Managing them was a bit of like, you know, a bit intimidating because like at that time we were both like 22 years old and our first employee was like 32 or 33. And it's like, I don't know how to tell this person like what to do, right? Like I just felt so out of place. But I guess you kind of learn as, you know, you go through the experiences and stuff.
But yeah, at that warehouse, I think we capped out at about 2 employees. Our second warehouse, which was roughly 4,000 square foot, I think we got as high as maybe 8 to 10 employees. At that warehouse, we had 2 dumpers, so we got as high as 8 to 10. Yeah. And at today's setting, I think we're sitting around 22 or 23 people.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Incredible. That's so fast too, because you said 2 years basically, right?
Yeah,
that's impressive.
What are some of the lessons that you guys learned along the way? I mean, you know, I think over the last 14 years that I've managed people, I still feel like I'm learning new things every day. But I imagine you guys sort of expediting that, like, you know, everything into a condensed 2 years. I'm guessing you guys learned a few tough lessons hard and fast. Do any come to mind?
I can say one and you can add on. Yeah. Well, my biggest lesson is, I mean, it's a common quote, common saying, definitely don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because when COVID happened, that was when Canada, everyone knows this, Canada got hit. I mean, Canada technically didn't get hit hard, but our government treated it like we got hit hard. So I know we were at home maybe for 2 months straight, no working, no sending inventory in. Obviously, Amazon shut down, so it was no essential. Like it was no, I think nobody at one point was sending books into FBA. So we were basically home for 2 months straight. And that kind of, once things started ramping up and we got back to work, that kind of opened our eyes and basically told us that, okay, when we move on from this warehouse space, we eventually want to start doing some of our own fulfillment. We're still, to this day, we are still 100% FBA, but eventually we're going to flip a switch maybe in the next week or so. And then we should have at least 30 to 40% of our business merch fulfilled.
Yeah.
What lesson did you learn, Manroop? Did you have one in mind?
I guess I can talk more about the employees and stuff. It was just, I guess, going back to David, what you were saying. I don't know. It's hard, man. Sometimes it gets hard because like the person's like, you vibe with the person and it's like, oh, okay, great employee, like great person, sorry, but like they're kind of slacking in the scanning department or listing department. So those are like tough conversations that you need to have because at the end of the day, we're running a business, right? It's not like, I don't know, but it was just like having those tough conversations with some employees that need to be let go. And even like creating systems like David, we talked about when you came, and the automation part of the business as well. Because right now, even to this date, me and Vishal are working there like full time. Because one is like we enjoy it, and there's two of us, so it's not that hard. It's like he'll take on half, or like I'll take on half. But we did talk to you about that as well, and there's definitely other stuff that you brought up, which it's good. Maybe if people come to the ScoutIQ event, they can learn those tips as well from David himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
So like when I visited you guys, one of the things that was just starkly different from where you guys are from anywhere else I've seen is just the price of real estate out there is absolutely insane. And the fact that you guys are in 14,000 square feet in Vancouver selling books, like I can't explain to you how mind-blowing that is because it's so expensive out there. What sort of adjustments did you guys have to make, I guess, when planning out your space? I know you guys went incremental. You started in the storage unit, scaled up, and now you're in 14,000 square feet. But what are some other sort of adjustments or, I guess, clever workarounds that you implemented in order to accommodate for the high real estate?
I think that's actually one of them. Is like a biggest one is like just slowly transitioning from one warehouse to another, because everyone's like I understand the concept of planning ahead and like you should plan out in a couple of years, like, oh, maybe we'll grow into this space. But for us, since we were doing FBA, it was just so much uncertainty at that point. So it's like it was nice how we went from a 300 square foot. We realized that worked. We could get more supply. Okay, now let's move into like a 1,500 square foot unit. And then 3-4 months later, we moved again and again. But I don't think there's anything special that we're doing.
I think the important thing when prices are that high, all the previous units we had, we weren't locked into long-term leases. So the longest lease we had was 1 year, and that was for the 4,000 square foot one. Because for these ones, like this 14,000 total that we have, we're locked into 5-year leases. And so I guess as the size gets up, landlords typically want a higher lease term as well. And then since we didn't have enough business history, we also had to kind of personally indemnify the leases. So you're taking on a lot more risk when you get to, I guess, larger warehouse space as well. Just to put it in perspective for like the prices. So in the British Columbia real estate market, technically the lower mainland mainly, for about just the benchmark for about 10,000 square foot in warehouse space, you're looking at least $20,000 to $24,000 a month in rent.
Yeah, for sure. And then even like the 14,000 square warehouse we have, it's not actually 14,000. Like we have an 8,000 square foot warehouse, which is where all of our FBA is listed and our loads are processed, and we have our office there where we work out of. And then we actually got another 6,000 square foot warehouse dedicated to merchant fulfilled. So it's like, even then we didn't just jump into straight 14,000. It's like, okay, we thought we could work out of an 8, but it didn't work. And then we moved into the 6,000. Like, obviously we tried to look for a bigger warehouse, but just during that time when we were looking, prices were just crazy. Like Vishal said. So So at that time, we weren't even going to qualify for that big of a warehouse. But yeah, I think, that's kind of a downside for us working out of like these warehouses. It's just they're really expensive.
And David, sorry, I don't even think we answered the question fully, but to like how we managed, I guess, this warehouse is one of the benefits of working out of Canada, I guess, is we have pretty easy access to labor. I know, David, you mentioned that it's pretty difficult to find warehouse workers. So that's one thing we've been fortunate with. Like we've had good access to labor. And also, since we sell predominantly in the United States, our payouts are also in USD. And if anyone's following foreign exchange right now, a lot of things are out of whack right now. So basically, $1 is 1.37
Right now,
Canadian dollars. So that kind of helps level out the rent a bit.
I wish it goes a bit higher though.
Yeah.
So 1.5, that would be good.
Yeah.
So, as far as like the exchange rate and really being able to like capitalize on the strong dollar, in your guys' mind, I don't want to get too deep into this part because it's interesting to me, but I don't know how applicable it is to everyone else. But like having the strong dollar, are you guys seeing it as kind of like a cherry on top, or are you factoring it in as like a long-term, I guess, business strategy? Like over the next 2 years, do you anticipate the dollar continuing to be strong and being able to capitalize on this?
I think it's more of like a cherry on top, but because like if you look at like the historical data, it's usually been around 1.2, maybe 1.22, something around that range, and like even that works pretty well for us. It would get a bit hard if it was 1-to-1, but no, we're not really banking on it staying at 1.35 or 3.7 because it just doesn't seem sustainable.
Yeah,
but
it was at 1.3 for the longest time. And I guess it just goes back to everything that's kind of out of your control, right? There's a lot of things in business that are out of your control. Yeah. Foreign exchange is definitely one of them. So it's not something I probably would lose sleep over it if, like Manroop said, it went 1-to-1. But as long as it stays higher than 1-to-1, I think there's not much we could do about it. Yeah.
So you guys are locked in, like you said, to a lease right now in your current space. At the rate you guys are growing and kind of want to grow, how do you see that kind of playing out over the next years? Do you have a lot of space you can kind of still expand into in your current space? Or do you think you guys will have to scale up again in the not too distant future?
No, actually,
definitely don't have a lot of space.
I think we talked to David about this. Right now in our warehouse, we have about 8 to 9 trailers that need to be processed. And then we also have, or like truckloads, and then we also have about 3 trucking companies altogether holding about 10 loads for us. We're just super backed up that we can't, like, because right now we're running 2 shifts. We go from 6 a.m. to about 3 p.m. And then we do a second shift in the evening from 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. at night. So we're working about 18 hours a day. And we're using 4 dumpers, but it just seems like we've just gotten so much supply in like just recent months as well that we haven't been able to keep up. And that was another reason for bringing, like David came over. It's like, okay, we can't just, always expand. We kind of need to work with what we have. And like, he gave a lot of good tips on how to increase our scans per hour, per employee or per day, which we're trying to implement to the best of our ability. But I don't think we can really expand more. It's more about just doing the best we can in our current space, and just managing the loads better. Like we can't really let recycling sit there for that long. Maybe you need to schedule it every day instead of every second day, or even the loads that come in and not just saying yes to every supplier, actually tracking the suppliers like metrics and stuff and being like, okay, is this supplier, like, yes, they'll send us books, but is it someone that's really worth keeping? Right? Just stuff like that we can do a lot better, which we're not really doing right now because we've just been solely focused on growing. Even now, it's like we weren't really thinking about the stuff David told us. We were mainly just being like, okay, we're kind of set up here. We got a bunch of supply. Let's go to a different province and set up shop there. But now it's like, okay, let's delay that and focus on this, try to get this as lean as possible, and then we'll go do that. But I think that answers the question.
It's just been managing incoming loads better, making sure recycling gets out faster. And that's really all you can do, because more space is always nice, but more space also costs money. And like when you're locked into leases, it's not easy to break leases. So I think we're at a good point now where if we can just manage what we already have a little bit better and make everyone more efficient, then we should be good for at least the months, hopefully years to come.
And then even to add on to that point, it's like at our, like even for David, it's like the employees will always be complaining about, oh, we need more space, we can't process this. But it's just about, I guess, explaining to them in a nice way as well. Be like, hey, it's not really in our budget to keep expanding that much, right? We got to work with what we've got, sort of thing.
Yeah. I wake up to a message every day from our warehouse manager complaining about not having space for recycling.
So or even like incoming loads, but we don't blame them either, because we know, like we've told them, we're growing really fast, and this is kind of just stuff that we've got to deal with a bit better. But yeah, no, space has always been an issue for us. Even now, we can move into a 20,000 square foot, and it's still someone will be complaining about space, not having enough space.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Have you guys had an easy time retaining employees? I know you said labor is easier for you guys to get out there. Have you guys been able to retain employees? Do you guys bring on new people quite often and just have your kind of standard operating procedures spelled out so it's easy to onboard people as you need and as you grow?
I think our core group, so we're about half in terms of our own employees, and then we use, I guess, a contractor, which is like a labor contractor. But we've been pretty adamant on telling the labor contractor to make sure that the people we get are the people that stay. So our turnover has not been that high.
That's awesome.
It's been pretty good. And
especially, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so most of our labor is scanners. So we have 16 people just scanning books. And I guess shout out to the ScoutIQ team and the PalletIQ team. So I'm going to pull out these pictures. I'll let Manroop talk for a bit. I have some pictures I want to show you guys. So since we're in Canada, everyone in Canada wants to scan for the .ca and .com marketplace at the same time. And this was at least a year and a half ago, before we started using PalletIQ, we used to have two eYoYo scanners mounted together. So the barcodes would intersect. And
is that tape on the bottom, just like taping them together?
And we would have two phones. So basically the two barcodes would be sending signals to two different phones, so we could get results for .com and .ca marketplace at the same time. Yeah. But then the employee or the scanner would also have to make a judgment call on where to send the book to, because sometimes there would be an accept on both. So that's where I think, shout out to Michael Kreider, he introduced me to Caleb Roth, and we worked together and we kind of built a solution on PalletIQ where you can do all that just with one scan. So now you got .ca, you got Amazon.com, you also have the MFFBA switch, you also have sell back your books. All that stuff is kind of just integrated in one. And that made it significantly easier to just train a bulk of our staff, because the bulk of our staff is scanning.
The core group of people that do most of like the managers and like scheduling loads and stuff, they've been with us, I think, for about 2 years. It's a nice work environment because everyone's pretty young, but the scanners have, obviously, I guess, because it's not like, I don't know, sometimes it's not like someone's most ideal job to be working at a warehouse. It's more of like a temporary thing until they, get permanent residency, get their citizenship, or get another job that's a bit better. But yeah, especially like you guys have made the software so easy. So it's very easy for us to train the scanners. And those are the people that have more turnover in our company. But even that, it's that most of them have been with us for almost, I'd say, about a year, 9 months to a year. Maybe one or two people will leave every 3-4 months, but I would say it's been pretty good.
Yeah. No, what I love about the story you just said is I think that for everyone watching the show is like most people probably would have given up or just wanted to scan for just Canada or just US before that solution existed, because they're like, no, there's no easy way to do it. But you guys jerry-rigged something together. It was barely put together, but it worked. It solved a problem you guys had, and you're able to grow your business because of that. Even though it wasn't pretty, even though it probably wasn't always the easiest thing to do, you're like, we have a problem, we got to figure out a solution, even if it's a little messy. It's what we got to do to grow the business. And I think it's that mindset that people really need to scale a business. Then thankfully Palette IQ was able to kind of solve some of those problems for you guys down the road and make it easier. But I love your guys' ingenuity and thinking that up and then kind of working that into your process versus just giving up because there's a problem. There's no easy solution to it at the time. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to riff off that, Mike or Matthew, is I think time and time again in these guys' stories and just getting a chance to know them a little bit better, it's like that sort of embodies that, like that the MacGyver spirit. I guess you guys are maybe too young for that reference, but Matthew, does that ring a bell, MacGyver?
The name does. I can't put a picture on what you're trying to say. No, not really.
Well, it's an old show. Pretty much he could he was in a situation and there are enemies coming and all he had was like a rubber band, a little battery and like a chewing gum, and he was able to engineer his way out of crazy situations essentially. But like pretty much what amazes me so much about these guys is like their ability to like, oh, hey, we're located in Canada, but we want to sell in the US, and just like not letting that deter them from pushing forward. I think that resilience and that grit is really something that it's a common trait that I've noticed in a lot of entrepreneurs. Real quick, so you guys mentioned Michael Kreider. Michael will actually be attending the ScoutIQ Summit as well, and so I mean, like the who's of the book world seem to be converging next week in Vegas.
Is Bill Martling coming as well?
Bill is coming as well.
Ooh.
Avery Romer the Romer is coming. He's speaking there.
Avery's in the comments right now shouting out Vishal.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got another question for you guys. So you guys started in 2020. Was it pre-COVID or post-COVID?
Pre-COVID. We started in 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, in 2019. But then you guys like scaled up into your warehouse in 2020, right?
Yeah.
And was that into COVID, or was that like right before COVID?
4,000 square foot warehouse was in COVID, during COVID times.
Yeah.
The ones before that, like the 300 square foot storage unit and the 1,500 square foot warehouse was not. That was pre-COVID.
Okay.
But we were able to survive that because that operation was lean, I would say, compared to this one. That one, our costs were very low, which was nice, just because like rent was very low at that location. And at that point, we had built up a sufficient inventory, like FBA inventory. So it's like, yes, we couldn't send books in, but we were still doing okay because like the payouts were still coming. But yeah, David, that was during the 4,000 square foot unit is when we were going through COVID.
Because I'm just trying to think, like, I just can't think of another moment in my business that has been as transformative, I guess, in both good and bad ways as COVID has been. And so like for me, I'd say COVID was probably like one of the most difficult periods of me ever being in business. And it really reshaped how I look at my company and how I go about business. Can you guys think about like, in your time selling books, maybe what was like the most difficult event that you guys have gone through, and maybe how that reshaped your company and who you guys are today?
Most difficult?
I think it would be the same for us, right?
Yeah. I mean, nothing than sitting at home, but sorry. What was that, David?
Have you ever been suspended on Amazon?
Luckily not yet. Not yet.
We're still crossing our fingers.
Not
But no, I think, me and Vishal were talking about that too. It was definitely transformative in a sense. It's like we can't, if you're going to run this big of a business, you can't solely just be at Amazon's mercy with FBA. As much as like cool FBA is, right? You don't have to worry about anything. It's like you send them in, they sell, that's perfect. But I think Vishal, he talks about this a lot as well. It's like the fees are always going up. You don't really have any control. But that was the main reason we got that second warehouse of 6,000 square feet, is just solely to do merchant fulfilled. As that gives us more options, like you can sell on different platforms. You're not like, it's like there's no limits being imposed on you, because limits started as a COVID thing, but Amazon still has them, right? They're not, it doesn't seem like they're going to go away anytime soon. But I think that's our strategy, is just to send the faster stuff to FBA and then hold on to the other material in our warehouse.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you guys think as far as opportunities go? What do you see as the biggest opportunity for you guys in the next year?
Definitely merch fulfilled. So we, Dave, we talked about this as well. Basically, we have shelving coming in from overseas. We ordered a full container of shelving, so it should let us store, assuming all the shelves are full, roughly, I think 140,000 books. So I think that's like the largest growth opportunity our business has right now. And I am forecasting that maybe will be roughly 40 to 50% MF when the dust settles and everything's done.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a big change.
Yeah. And I guess, so like how I kind of explain our business to everyone is like, everyone, like when we mention Canada, everyone's like, oh, maybe you're selling on the .ca marketplace, you're selling in Canada. But the beauty of being in Canada and I guess neighboring the United States is that there's really like, there's a lot of preferential like tariff treatments. So doing business across the border, I mean, there's a lot of solutions and companies that just help make that process as seamless as possible. Like, for example, there's a lot of Canadian startups where literally all they do is help you get a Delaware or Wyoming corporation. So it's very easy for a Canadian to even open a corporation in the United States now. Before, it used to be really difficult. So I basically explain our business as, yes, we're based in Canada, but we still operate like a US based bookseller. So like the .ca marketplace is less than probably 5% of our business.
It used to be a bit bigger.
Yeah.
When we didn't have limits and stuff, like that was nice. All the extra stuff would just go .ca, and we'd get a nice payout from that. But I guess the future is usually, yeah, we send most of our stuff to the US for sure. Another reason for that is like you can't merchant fulfill in Canada. It's just very, very expensive. The typical rate to get from one side of the country to the other is about $12.
Anywhere from $10 to $13 a book.
Yeah. And
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And we did talk to like our like UPS and like Canada Post and stuff to see if we could get a bulk rate on that. And even with like bulk prices and stuff, we were only like getting a $2 discount, like $10.
Yeah. So it's nothing like the United States Portal Service for sure.
Yeah. It's actually cheaper for us to go to the States and ship that book out from the States back into Canada, which is funny. Yeah.
That is really funny.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's really incredible. I mean, I think it's the prc.gov or .org that talks about all the different regulations and the different meetings that the USPS has regarding their services. And I just keep reading about just how unprofitable media mail rates and bound printed matter rates are for the USPS. And I just don't get why they keep it around. I mean, I hope they do because it's great for booksellers. But I'm just wondering if like there's a lobby of big booksellers that are just like putting pressure to keep these rates alive. Like I'm definitely not part of that group, but it makes me wonder, like, because they're breaking even or sometimes even losing money on these services. I'm just wondering why they're subsidizing it. Do you guys know?
No. My guess would be, I guess, low volume, low weight, just to kind of increase the volume of stuff moving from state to state. And it's obviously small packages, low weight. So that would be my guess. But
Yeah, it is interesting to think about though, because it is significantly lower than any other way of shipping, and it's interesting to see why that would be. It'll be something we should probably look into the history of for next episode and see kind of why those rates were initially set, and see if there's some lobby or law or something that initially brought those in. I bet there's some interesting story behind it, because it stayed that way for a while, and there's got to be a reason for it. Whether it's a good reason or not, I don't know, but I'm sure there's a reason.
I'll ask you guys just like one or two more questions, and then if any viewers have questions, drop them in the comments, and then we'll ask them after my questions, and then we'll do a quick geek out moment. Cool. Have you explained to Vishal and Manroop about the geek out segment?
Yeah, we talked about that.
All right, very good. So I guess for you guys, like setting up Merchant Fulfilled, what do you see as like the biggest challenge? What do you anticipate being the biggest challenge, like interacting directly with the customer moving forward?
So I see the biggest challenge probably being transit times. So there's an added layer, I guess, being in Canada, right? So we need to find a way to get our books into the States in a timely manner. So whether we get a truck to do that and we, I guess, just line haul it down to where it needs to go, but that can add anywhere from 3 to 6 days to the transit time. So it's just kind of balancing that whole part of Merchant Fulfilled. It's just the delivery times.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's like 3 to 5 days before the carrier, like USPS, for example, even has a chance to ship it to.
Or like, I guess the last mile part, the last mile delivery part. Yeah.
Right. So obviously you see huge potential upside outside of the benefit of not having all your eggs in the FBA basket. Do you guys see any other benefits?
I've always been, it was kind of just, it was our main reason for doing Merch Fulfilled is kind of diversifying off the Amazon platform and using some other softwares out there to kind of help with, I guess, listing on eBay. And there's other ones as well, but I think they're smaller, like Books, Alibri, and Biblio. So that was kind of the whole purpose of Merch Fulfilled as well. And and sorry, it will help us, I guess, monetize our inventory better, because the recycling market in the Pacific Northwest is not that good. So that's one of the struggles we had. So if we can just monetize our inventory better, squeeze out a bit more juice, it kind of helps on the back end as well.
Yeah. And I think
absolutely.
you gave us you gave us a lot of good tips on how we can improve our recycling situation, which I think in that alone was worth a lot of money to us per month. I would say at least $30,000 a month. So that's another reason, I guess, for, the network. It's really important once you get to like this stage and stuff. It's like there's only so much information you could find online. But like, even like David, for you, it's like how much you've helped us in like the MF and like even the recycling situation. It's now I guess me and Vishal know the importance of having a network of other sellers that you can ask questions to and stuff. It was really good, but that was like the golden nugget for sure.
Yeah, another selling point for the biggest trip.
Yeah,
so David basically came into our Merch Fulfilled warehouse, which is still a skeleton. It's open. He ran into the warehouse, and since it's still pretty empty because we're still waiting for the bulk of our shelves to come, he was literally showing us where he would put this workstation, where the cart should drive out. So just all those little details, he was basically giving us tips over his, I guess, 13, 14 years of experience on running a book business on how we should properly set up our warehouse. So all that stuff is invaluable, and it's going to be like that for 5 years. So having a good foundation to start off with is great.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Last question that I have for you is, I guess, who carries what weight in the partnership? Because like it seemed like to me, Vishal, you were just busy like hanging out with me the entire time while Manroop was actually doing the hard work. Is that the actual dynamic, or do you guys split it more evenly? How does that look?
So I always have a hard time answering this question. And David, you said it best when we were walking down that beach, that beautiful beach, English Bay. It's a Vancouver special. So you were basically asking who's the was and who's the jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I would say Manroop's more of the visionary, right? So he brings me these, big ideas. It's like, oh, maybe we should do this. We should do this. We should do this. And then he'll kind of oversee all that type of stuff, where I'll be the more technical person. So I guess I'll interact with software, and like, I guess going back to when ScoutIQ was first done, I was the one mostly communicating with the team. And I do more of, I guess, the technical stuff.
Yeah, Vishal really likes, I guess, like what from I've learned from him, it's like he really likes to get into the details and make everything perfect. So it's like you don't just do it and it's like, oh, there's, like, okay, it's working now, but it's not going to work in the future sort of thing. It's like, I think Vishal's personality has been like, yeah, he's going to figure it out so it keeps working sort of thing. But yeah, he's more into the details, where I'm more into like the more overview stuff and like the operational stuff a bit. But I think in terms of like just understanding each other, we've had a pretty good team. And like we both are like, this is what we're focused on together. So it's nice. It's like we're not really doing much else in terms of work. But yeah, I think we've had a great team so far, and it'll probably stay like that.
That's awesome. I think it's so important in business partnerships to have complementary skill sets like that. I think so many people try and get into business with someone that's just like them, and they both have the same strengths and same weaknesses, and they both fall apart at the same time. And so having those different kind of personalities or different skill sets, I think, is extremely valuable in having a successful partnership. Because as you guys know, partnerships are not always easy. There's headbutting, there's different interests. Someone's working harder than the other person. There's always these different issues, but having very different skill sets and areas you're over the business, I think, are a huge way that people can make partnerships work. Or if someone's looking for a partner right now, find someone that has different skill sets than you do, not someone that thinks just like you. I think that really helps businesses grow quicker.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Matthew, because even like starting a business, it's like, oh, I get along with this person and we're both pretty similar, so let's go do it together, so to speak. And it's like, yeah, but you're literally both specializing in the same stuff, right? But yeah, that's a great point. Like, we're pretty different when it comes to that, which is, I guess, why it works pretty well.
Do you have anything else, David? Or you want to start the geek out moment and go into that section?
Yeah, let's do it.
Anyone put your questions for Vishal and Manroop in the comments below. I'm looking, my comments aren't loading for some reason. I'm pretty sure there's, yeah, there they are. Yeah, throw them in the comments below. We'll be monitoring those. We'll go to the geek out moment for a minute. Someone was asking earlier, where's the link to the summit? Right up there on the screen. I've left it there for a little while, scoutiq.co/summit, to grab those tickets if you've heard us talking about that on here. So David, what's something you're really interested in right now?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, this is something that I've known, but it was just reinforced recently, which is the importance of having a strong candidate funnel for like new employees, and then making sure that cycle is as quick as possible. And right now, the job market is cooling off, and so it's not quite as difficult to find people to work, but especially in times where it's really difficult to find good people, just having a strong funnel and just having clear outlines as far as like, what each step looks like, and being able to move that person as quickly through that pipeline as possible is just really important. And that was just sort of reinforced recently because we just posted an ad to fill a position that we had vacant on Friday of last week. And then on Saturday, Sunday, we had some applications. On Monday, we scheduled interviews. On Tuesday, we did the interviews, and of which we found one person who really fit our criteria. We extended an offer, and they started Wednesday. And so it was like the fastest cycle that I've ever seen. And it was like literally from start to finish, it was like 5 days. But I've heard feedback in the past as far as like people saying like, hey, I just had a company reach out to me asking me if I'd be interested in doing an interview. And this was like a week or two after we had already hired that person. And so it was just like the company's like early bird gets the worm. Have you heard of that saying? The early bird gets the worm. And in this case, I think the early bird gets the best people, like, or it gets the first pick, right? And so, yeah, that's one thing that I'm sort of geeking out about. And I think this can be applicable to all other aspects in life, as far as like having a clear like customer journey and having a clear, you know, vendor journey, like for all the different vendors that you work with, and like all these different pipelines are really important because, you know, just from your guys' perspective, like you don't want to go to a Starbucks and then have to wait 20 minutes for your coffee. Like you want it to be nice and quick. And like you can see that some of the most successful companies in the world, like Chipotle and like Chick-fil-A. I saw Chick-fil-A ranked #1 again this year for fastest drive-through time in like under a minute and a half, compared to McDonald's and Burger King's like 2 to 4 minutes. And so those things really do make a big difference. So that's what I'm speaking out about right now.
Awesome. Manroop, what you got? What you geeking out about at the moment?
I guess for me, like this is outside of work. It's just like it's not really a geeking out moment because it's related to sports, but I've just been practicing, I guess, because a little bit of backstory, I went to Toronto and it was for my cousin's engagement, and I played basketball with one of my younger cousins, and he's a bit on, like, he's not very athletic and he's a bit on the chubbier side, and he beat me like 11 to like 2. And I've been playing sports my entire life. And I guess that just like lit a fire in me. So it's like every day after work now, it's like I go and play basketball for an hour and a half just to prove that I will beat him when he comes to Vancouver next year. But yeah, I guess
That's
that was
awesome.
something that I'm just focusing on outside of work. But yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I guess there's a couple things. One, and I guess Manroop is kind of geeking out about this too, but we're both geeking out about this at the same time because David opened our eyes. So David basically introduced us to a video on YouTube. I think it's like a 2-part. Basically, you could just YouTube Paul Akers lean manufacturing, and it's just how to make a warehouse highly efficient. And when you're at a level of, I guess, the guy in the video, Paul Akers, they do small things to, I guess, save seconds. And it's not really about saving time. It's about making the employee's life easier, right? So we never thought about this. We just got introduced to this topic. And now David also told us some things, but we're already realizing more things that instead of saving seconds, they'll save minutes. So we're not even at the point where we can change and shift where gaylords are placed or where the trucks back up and all that stuff. Like, we're not even at the point where we can save seconds. We could implement just small things, and if each person saves a minute, that's already 25 minutes in a day. And I guess another thing I'm geeking out about is one thing that impresses me with, I guess, David's company is kind of like the whole brand he has around his company, and kind of having a website as a front for potential suppliers and any partnerships that you want to do in the future to kind of have a landing page to reach out to. And I think that's one thing that we probably need to start working on, because, I mean, nothing against this, but we still have an @gmail.com. So I think that's like one small thing that it just irks me every time I see our email. And I kind of want there to be like a brand or at least a website where our suppliers can go to. And it helps, I guess, for community outreach as well. So that's kind of one thing I want to start working on as a side project.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Hey, Matthew, before you go, that video that Vishal was just mentioning, I dropped it in the private chat if you want to post it.
Yeah, let me grab that.
It's a video about lean manufacturing. And it's just like, I think I first watched it last year. And then after I watched that first time, I watched it like 4 more times straight, like, because it's just so good. And it really transforms the way that you not only think about like work, but it also transforms the way that you think about everything in life. And you realize that there's so many things that there's so much waste, essentially, right? So, yeah.
That's
if you wanted to
awesome.
post that.
Yeah, so I threw that in the comments. It's going to be in the comments on YouTube. For some reason, it's not letting me post a comment to Facebook. So anyone watching on Facebook, type in the Book Flipper on YouTube, or just type in Books and Bourbon episode 23 and look at the comments, and you'll see a link to that video in there. So my Geek Out moment, I've noticed the past like 2 weeks, I haven't done a Geek Out moment related to business, and today I'm not going to either. This is maybe more of a fail than a Geek Out moment, but we are still landscaping stuff in our backyard. We had a bunch of rock we had to spread out. I got some quotes, and I was like, it'd be way cheaper if I just rent a Bobcat and go out there and do it myself than hiring someone to come out and do that. So I tried to get one of those small little like 36-inch ones to drive around and spread the rock, but they're all taken. So the guy's like, you can have our massive 6-foot Caterpillar one, and we can take that back there and do it. I'm like, great, that'll be even faster. So we had our rock delivered and everything. I got in that thing. I'd driven a Bobcat before. It's been a long time. This was one of the fancy ones with the joysticks. You're driving everything. And turns out it's a lot more difficult than I initially expected to move landscape rocks around the backyard. Those things are super easy to drive, but they're crazy difficult to be precise with. And I just had like this new level of appreciation for all those guys that operate the equipment that makes it look so easy. Like it's just something the machine's doing automatically, when in reality it's so difficult to make things look good. So the rocks are spread, but they look terrible because they're all like lumpy, and I dumped it too fast in some spots, and there's bald spots. I'm out there with a rake trying to like even it all back out because my driving skills were absolutely terrible. So that goes to show, if you just try and save money, it doesn't always lead to the best results. So sometimes it's better just to pay for it up front. But I did have fun driving that around, and we're out here in Arizona, and it had AC, which was really, really nice to be like in there, have your AC, have the radio behind you, and then just be driving around the backyard. So I had fun with it, even though turns out I suck at doing it. All right, let's look at some questions from the comments here. It looks like Bill Martlink was in the comments back a little while ago. Hey, Bill. We've got a question right here. Talked about IOYO scanners. What label printers do you guys use?
So, Christina, we actually don't use the IOYO scanners anymore, but it's pretty similar. We just use those handheld barcode scanners. You can get them off Amazon, I think, for 30 to 40 bucks. We have basically 8 of those just running all day. What label printer do you use? So for FBA operation, we use the Dymo 4 XL. That basically answers your second question as well, because those let you print the FNSKU labels and shipping labels. You just have to switch the label out, and you might have to go in your printer properties and just change the size of the paper. But if you use a Dymo 4 XL, it should let you print both FNSKU and shipping labels.
Awesome. This next question is good for all three of you. Do you guys have any videos newbies can watch and learn from? And I'll add something onto this. Where can people follow you guys or get in contact with you if people want to kind of follow your journey from this point forward? Do you guys have social media or Instagram or anything you post on every once in a while? Or
yeah, so we started an Instagram. We don't post too often on it, but maybe we'll start posting a bit more on it now.
We don't know there's an audience for it, but
so yeah, it's just Van City FBA. So it's VANCITY FBA.
Van City FBA on Instagram.
Yeah.
Awesome. And David, you don't have a YouTube channel, do you? You've posted videos a lot on your Instagram, but you have never posted anything on YouTube, have you? Or do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I don't have a YouTube channel, and you can just follow me at Dave Can Read on Instagram. I don't post there much either, but yeah, maybe I should get around to doing that a little bit more, huh?
You were doing live streams for a little while, weren't you? Like once a week or something like that?
Yeah, I was doing live streams for a little while. And I mean, Matthew, you and I could probably attest to like doing a weekly live stream. It's a commitment. Like it's an actual thing that you have to do. And it's not just something that, you know, you eventually fall into. It's like every week for me, I'm like, I have to set reminders. I have to get into the mental state in order to do this. So
yeah,
I don't know if I'd ever do live streams beyond Books and Bourbon again, but definitely like making more videos. I think that's something that is definitely in the future.
Awesome. Well, Manroop, Vishal, thank you guys for coming on. I'm really looking forward to meeting you guys in person next week down in Vegas. It'll be a really, really good time. Once again, we've talked about it so many times. I'll throw the link up there one more time. ScoutIQ.co/summit. to grab tickets. That's the 14th and 15th in Las Vegas next week. And we'll all be there. Caleb's going to be there. We've got a bunch of great speakers and so many great sellers going to be there as well. People starting out and people that are as experienced as these guys right here will be there to talk and network with and do escape rooms with. We should start a bet on which groups get out of the escape room and which ones are not able to get out of the escape room when we break off in groups and go to the escape rooms. We'll have to see which teams actually have the talent on them to get out. So that'll be fun to see. But I'm looking forward to that. Anything else? Closing thoughts, guys?
No, that's good. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for tuning in to episode 23. Next week, we'll be back with episode 24 that we might actually be able to do from Las Vegas right before the event starts. I don't know if it'll be a full episode then, but we'll do at least a small live stream next week, all in person. I think it'll be our very first Books and Bourbon. We'll actually film all together in the same room, which will be fun to do. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.